All right, today we're going to be in the budget project notes packet and we're going to be talking about credit cards and just some basic things that you'll need to know if you ever do decide to get a credit card. So we're going to go through some fill in the blanks and then we're going to fill out a table, and really we're just kind of discussing information about credit cards. So a credit card allows you to borrow funds to pay for goods and services. So basically, a credit card is this credit card company gives you a card and they give you a limit of how much you can spend every month. And you can use it as many times as you want till you hit that limit. And then at the end of the month, you have to pay all of that money back. So it's not like that money comes out of your bank account instantly. So that's why some people like the credit card, because then they can spend and spend and spend. And then when they get paid, they can just pay it all back. So do you have to pay funds back that you borrow? Yes. And if you don't pay the funds back within the grace period, you will owe interest. So you'll owe what you spent, and then the company will add a certain interest rate to your card. So if you don't pay, you got to pay what you owe plus 3% back. So you would have to pay more than what you actually spent. So it's good just to know how much you're spending and just be mindful of it, so then you don't have to pay that extra money back because you made a late payment. All right, so terms to know. Grace period is the amount of time you have to pay off your purchases before owing interest. The balance is the amount you owe on your credit card at any given time. So you can pay on your credit card as often in a month as you like. But if you want to build credit, it's good to keep your payments to a minimum. You don't want to go to McDonald's, buy a meal, and then go on your credit card app and immediately pay that credit card back. You want to let that amount sit there until 2 weeks or the end of the month, whenever you decide to pay, so that you are building your credit score up. So the annual percentage rate is the yearly interest rate. You'll pay if you don't pay your balance by the end of the grace period. And your APR is written as a percent. Credit card limit / credit line access is the maximum amount of money you can borrow using your credit card at any given time. A cash advance occurs when you borrow cash using your credit card at a bank or an ATM. And then finance charge, the total amount of money you'll owe in interest and fees for using your credit card each month. All right, so that's just some basics about credit cards. Now, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of a credit card. So first, we're going to start with the advantages. So the first one, it builds your credit score and credit history. These two things are super important, especially when you're going out to live on your own, because a lot of apartments and houses that you rent, or even when you go buy, they're going to look at your credit score and your credit history, because no one's going to rent you an apartment if you have a bad credit score, because that means that you're not paying your bills on time. Okay? Even buying a house, a bank's not going to loan you that big amount of money if you're not going back and paying on the small things. So they're not going to give you that loan or approve you for that amount of money that they're going to let you borrow. Okay, another thing, you have to have a credit score or credit history to buy a car. Okay, so if you ever want to lease or buy a car, you're going to have to show your credit history. So it's really, some people believe not to have a credit card because you're putting yourself in debt. Okay, but if you pay on it, then it's not really considered a debt. But it is important to get a credit card. Okay, I wouldn't suggest getting multiple credit cards. I would start with one and build up your credit score and then go from there. That's what me and my husband do. We have one credit card that we use, and we're just using it to build up our credit so that when we do decide to buy a house, our credit score is good and we're able to do that. All right, the next one is it offers rewards. So depending on the type of credit card you get, there are certain rewards that come with that. The one my husband and I use, okay, we get a certain percentage of cash back every month for when we use the card. So it's encouraging us to use the credit card because they're going to give us 1% back or 2% back, okay? Also, some airlines have credit cards, so if you like to travel or if you travel a lot, it may be good for you to get an airline credit card. So then you're earning miles, so then when you go to buy a plane ticket, you already have it paid for because your credit card has given you miles that you can use with a certain airline. So those are just two examples I've thought on the top of my head, but there are more rewards that credit cards offer. So when you're researching what credit card you want to use when you're applying for one, look at the rewards and see if that's something that would benefit you. Because if you don't travel and you're never going to get on a plane, I wouldn't get an airline credit card because then you're not going to use the rewards that are being offered to you. All right, the third one offers enhanced fraud protection. So this is a big one, especially with how much online shopping and ordering people do these days. So if you were to order something and it did not come, and let's say it was like $500, let's say you made a Shein order for $500 and it never came, and you did it with a debit card, if you called your bank, they're not going to give you that $500 back. But a credit card would because you have that protection plan. All right, and then the last one is access to emergency funds. All right, now let's talk about some disadvantages. All right, so the first one, it can damage your credit score. And history if used irresponsibly. So if you have a credit card and you're not making payments on it, that is hurting your credit score. So if you're going to get a credit card, you need to be responsible and make sure that you're making the payments during the grace period so then you're not getting charged extra. Next one can go into debt easily. I kind of talked about this a minute ago. So people think credit cards are so fantastic because you're technically not spending money at that moment, okay? But you do have to pay it back. You're just borrowing the money. So people just spend and spend and spend, and then they're in a lot of debt, and it's going to take them a long time to pay it off. So it's good just to be responsible about what you're spending your credit card on and how often you're spending it. All right, can be expensive. So the more you spend on your credit card, the more that credit card bill is going to be. So like I said, you need to be mindful and you need to know your financial situation so then you're able to know how much to spend to be responsible and not go into debt super fast. And then the last one, fees can be high. So depending on your credit score and your credit history, that's going to be that's going to help the credit card company find the right plan for you. And so just look at those fees and make sure you're not paying an unreasonable amount when you do get a credit card, because then like it may not even be worth it because the fees could be so high. All right, let's go to the next page. So credit cards versus debit cards. So the main difference between credit cards and debit cards is money is borrowed when a credit card is used, but money is directly withdrawn from account when using debit card. All right, so credit card, something you borrow and you pay back later. Debit card, it comes directly out of your account then and your money is gone. Credit cards may charge interest on your purchases, while debit cards do not. Credit cards can lead to overspending or debt, which we kind of already talked about. Credit cards require a signature when you make a purchase, while debit cards require a PIN number. And credit cards are considered safer than debit cards when making purchases online, which we already talked about. Okay, they have that fraud protection that debit cards do not. Obtaining a credit card, so to apply for a credit card, you have to fill out a credit card application. The financial institution will review your credit score or history. To determine whether or not you qualify for the card. All right, the next part is credit card disclosures. So financial institutions are required to provide a Schumer box that shows all the applicable fees and costs associated with the card. So that was on our disadvantages in our table because some of those fees may be really high. Okay, and you can use this box to compare multiple cards. So there are a lot of different credit cards that you can research and apply for. And like I said, you want to make sure that you're choosing one that fits your financial situation the best and your lifestyle the best. Okay, my example earlier was like if you don't plan to fly a lot or travel a lot, don't apply for an airline credit card because the rewards and stuff, that's not going to benefit you. All right, then the last section is credit scores and history. So your credit score will give the financial institution information about how likely you are to pay back your debt, there are 3 credit bureaus: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and these are the companies that people will pull your credit score and history from. A credit score can range from 300 to 850. 300 being bad, 850 being excellent. All right, next we're going to list 3 things that are taken into consideration when your credit score is calculated. So the first thing is your payment history. So if you're making any bill or type of payment on time. All right, the next one is the amount of debt you owe. And then the last one, how long you've been using a credit card. All right, because you won't have a credit score when you apply for your first card, you are likely to have a low credit limit and a high interest rate. And that's because the credit card company, there's just no history for them to look at. So they don't know what type of person you are or how financially stable you are. So they're going to start you out with a low credit limit, which means you can only spend $500 on that card in a month. And then if you don't, then you have to pay 12% back. Okay, that would be a low credit limit and a high percentage or a high interest rate. And then once you build that credit and you're making those payments on time, they will give you a bigger credit limit with a lower interest rate. Okay, it's all just based on time and to see how responsible you are going to be with that card. So that finishes off the notes for credit cards.